probably been thinking about this for a while. Maybe there was an event that brought it on. The house is too big, the house is too small, the kids aren't visiting anymore, too many stairs. Who knows what it could have been? And now you're wondering if it's time to sell or not. It's a good idea to make a list of the reasons you like living where you are right now. And then a list of the reasons you don't like living where you are right now. And then make a list as if you were waving a magic wand. Where would you be in a year or 5 years? My parents came to me about 15 years ago with a similar situation. They knew that one of them was going to pass before the other one did. And they wanted to talk about what they could do to make it easier on the spouse that remained. They said, "We're thinking we might want to sell and move into a condominium. What do you think?" Well, I gave them the same exercise. Write down why you like living here, why you don't like living here. They both wanted to really stay in the house, but they were afraid that the upkeep, etc., the little niggling things that need to be done, that my dad had been doing for a long time, well, forever. They never hired anybody to cut the grass or to paint the house. Big stuff they would, but the regular maintenance things, no. So we made a list of those things, what needed to be done. And then we went out and found contractors, got prices, created a budget, so to speak, to see what it would cost. Because remember, beginning with the end in mind, they really wanted to stay in the house. They just didn't want the remaining spouse to have to deal with the maintenance, the upkeep, etc. Well, we came up with a budget and it turns out it was a lot less than they thought it was going to be. So they stayed in the house. They came to me because I'm number one son and they trusted me. That means that I was their fiduciary. I gave them advice, my best advice and counsel, no matter what it meant to me. After you've made your list up, that's what you'll need to do too, is find someone that you trust, that you can talk to about this and see if your expectations are realistic. And by the way, Mom passed first. Dad stayed in the house for another 12 or 13 years. Very happy living there. Missed her, of course, but he got to stay in the house. We figured it out and it worked. They didn't have to sell to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. Now, you may find out the same thing after you've talked to your fiduciary, the person in your family or your circle that you trust to give you their best advice and counsel. If that's not the case, if you figure out that you may need to sell, then you're going to need to find someone to help you with the sale. And there's a couple of ways that you can go about that. One, you may have someone in the family that's a real estate agent that you trust. That person may know what they're doing. They may have been at it for a long time. You may also have someone in the family that is a real estate agent that doesn't know what they're doing, and you really don't want to involve them in the sale. If that's the case, well, you go to step 2. This is pretty obvious, but you ask family and friends. Who have they used and had a good experience with? If you want to keep it private and you don't want to talk to family and friends about it quite yet, well, that's called doing your own diligence, and there's a couple of great ways to do that as well. Go to open houses. The agents are going to be on their best behavior. They think you're there to buy the house. They don't realize that you're there looking at them and not the house. Another way is to go online and poke around, watch videos. There are plenty of agents to choose from, and the good ones will usually stand out. Once you've picked out a couple, a good rule of thumb is to first see how they communicate. Now, you may or may not have seen them at an open house already or watched them on video, but this is the first test. Email them, don't call them, and see how fast they get back to you. If you email someone in the morning, you should hear back from them later in the day. Communication, I like to say, is really the business that I'm in, and it's communicating with my clients, as well as the people that may or may not be buying the house. My main job is to communicate well with my clients. Once you've decided you want to actually meet an agent or two, make the appointment and notice what they do between the time you make the appointment and the day of the appointment. For example, I like to send people information about their house that's public record, the deed, the field card, the Zillow, etc. People I'm meeting with may or may not have seen any of this information. I'll also send them some MLS information. What has sold in their neighborhood, for example, over the last 6 months. All of this together in a PDF file. There's very, very little about me in the file because this is not about me. At the meeting, you may want to set up the conversation with something like this. We've invited you here because we're not sure what to do. We think we might want to sell our house, but we want some help, and we were wondering what you thought. Now you can really tell whether or not this person sitting across the kitchen table has your best interests at heart. In other words, could act as your fiduciary. The agent should start asking you a lot of questions, like, why do you like living here? Why don't you like living here? Where do you think you might want to be? And remember, you've already done that work. You've already figured all that out. So it's okay to share that information if you're asked those questions. If the person launches into, well, I've done this and I've done that, well, that's often a good indication that they're thinking about themselves and not about you. So, is it a good time to sell the house? I don't know. It's really up to you. Isn't this where we started? It's a process, not an event. Yet.